Hello everyone, it's LuxrayMogul here for another episode of LuxrayMogul Coverage. Today we are going to be talking about Garchomp. Pretty good card right now, pretty expensive. It's around 12-ish, I believe, on Troll and Troll right now. So it's pretty expensive. It's from Dragon Exalted from the new set, and let's just discuss the card and see why it's getting hyped up so much. Let's start off with an overview of the card. Now, Garchomp is a Stage 2 Pokemon, as you can see from here. It's a Stage 2 Pokemon, evolves from Gabite. Okay, Stage 2s are actually becoming very prominent inside the format now, because the format has slowed down a lot since the last season, because a lot of the energy accelerations are gone. So, it is a Dragon Pokemon with 140 hit points. So, it's pretty good for a Stage 2 Pokemon, it's pretty decent. It's decent. Has a weakness of Dragon times 2, which is like all the normal Dragon Pokemon nowadays are all weak to Dragon. No resistance, and a retreat cost of 1, which is actually pretty good for a Stage 2 Pokemon nowadays. You don't see a 1 retreat cost with Stage 2s anymore, so it is pretty good. It has a pretty good retreat cost, so it looks like a pretty decent card so far. Let's look at the attacks. Its first attack, Match Cut, does a 60 damage for 1 fighting energy, so that's reminiscent of Donphan Prime. I forgot to attach a scan of that, but it is reminiscent of Donphan Prime, who also did a 60 damage with a fighting energy. But Donphan Prime was a basic, and it did 10 damage to all your Pokemon on your bench. So it did a little damage spread, and Garchomp doesn't do that. Garchomp actually lets you discard an extra special energy attached to its fighting Pokemon as well. So right now, Blend Energy, Prism Energy, Double Colorless Energy, those are all really good cards in the format right now. Mostly Blend Energy. So it's a pretty good attack. So that's pretty good attack for the first one. That's for 1 fighting energy. So Blend Energy works for that as well too. For the second energy for the second attack is Dragon Blade for a water and a fighting for 100 damage, which is a pretty solid attack once we talk about the strategies afterwards. And you get to discard the top 2 cards of your deck, which isn't great, but for 2 cards for 100 is not too bad, considering your Stage 2 Pokemon. And by the time you're at Garchomp, you should be just nailing 100 every turn. So those are the attacks. It looks like it's a pretty decent card. But we're going to talk about some of the strategies we can use to try to utilize this card even better. Its pre-evolution, Gabite, has a Pokemon power called Dragon Call. So once during your turn, before you attack, you may search your deck for a Dragon Pokemon. So that's obviously it's a pretty good Poke Power ability. I'm stuck in the old format. Ability. It's a pretty good ability to begin with. You find a Dragon Pokemon. If you have many Gabites on the bench, you can find many Dragon Pokemon. So you can also help you try to find your Garchomps as well. So running Rare Candy in this deck, if you run a deck with a Garchomp, shouldn't be too much of a problem, because you usually don't need it. Because you usually have to go through Gabite as well. So it's a very good tech to add into your deck. Very good strategy. Also, Altaria works really well with a very high tier deck right now, Garchomp Altaria. Because Altaria's Fight Song lets all your Dragon Pokemon do 20 more damage, and the effect stacks. So have more Altaria on your bench, that's how many more, it increases by 20 for every Altaria you have in your bench, which is a pretty good way of plus powering your Garchomp's attacks. So, like, your Garchomp could if you have a full bench, you can be doing 180 damage, which is enough to knock out an EX. But of course, obviously, it's hard to set up 4 Altaria onto your bench. But, setting up a decent amount of Altaria will help you do decent amounts of, solid amounts of damage every turn without having to discard too many energy cards or too many cards from your Garchomp. Let's talk about some other techs now. So, you saw Garchomp, you saw Gabite, you saw Altaria and you saw Gabite, and those are really good additions to the deck because, first of all, Gabite's Dragon Call can find all these Pokemon for you and bring them all out, just so it's easier for you to set up. So it's a very easy way to set up. It's very fast too. One of the techs I would suggest running through is Level Ball. Devil Ball. How did I get that? Anyways, Level Ball is very good because you get a certain 90 hit points. So you find Gabites with this. What's the one before Gabite? Gibble. There we go. You can find Gibbles, Gabites, Altarias, and Swablues with a Level Ball, and obviously that allows for very fast setup. And you can, it's the effect, you use level ball to find a Gabite, then use that Gabite to find another Gabite, use that Gabite to find another Gabite, and then use that Gabite to find a Garchomp or Altaria, you're pretty much set up by the end of turn 2 or turn 3. So it's a very level ball helps a lot. So level ball is a very staple trainer right now. So obviously you should be running a little bit of it in your deck, but I'd say running a full set. That's a pretty good idea too. Blend energy. This blend energy uses provides lightning, metal, fighting, and water. So as you know, Garchomp's energy attacks require water and fighting. So attaching a blend energy will provide any kind of energy you need. So either fighting or water. So that's a very convenient kind of way to charge up Garchomp without having to attach too many other basic energy. And you know, you don't have to run the risk of losing. You don't have to run the risk of not being able to draw a water energy over a fighting energy, because it is a little bit of a rare if you run not as much basic energy. So blend energy you can only run 4 in your deck. So I mean, I would run 4. I'm running 4 right now in my deck, and it's a pretty good way to charge it up. So yeah. Giant Cape is also pretty good. Garchomp has 140 hit points right now, but adding a Giant Cape to your Garchomp gets it 160 hit points, which is almost to the level of EX, basically EX. And to make your Garchomp harder to knock out of the stadium, and if you have more than one Giant Cape, like one on each Garchomp, then you're pretty much having 3 or 4 160 hit point Garchomps hitting solidly for 100, 120, 130, 140 every turn. So I mean, Giant Cape adds to your hit points, and that is splendid. It is a very good idea to add Giant Cape. Emolga, very important card in the format right now because Collector is gone. Emolga's first attack called for colorless energy, so you can attach anything, a blend energy, water energy, fighting energy, anything that you have in your deck, and you can search your deck for 2 Pokemon. Obviously, you would search for maybe a Swablu or say a Gibble, and then you can use Dragon Call after that to find everything you need. But Emolga is a very essential part of setting up, so if you can start with an Emolga on the first turn, it is so decent, because it'll help you set up Pokemon as many, 2, not as many, but 2, and then, you know, stack it, stack it upon subsequent turns. I don't know if you'll have the time to stack subsequent turns, but it is a good way to start setting up your Pokemon, so you don't have to put so much pressure on yourself to fill your bench. Now, time for the overall impressions. Garchomp, very decent. 100 damage for Dragon Blade, 60 damage for Match Cut. There's my rating. That was not supposed to show up yet. But this computer acts on its own, by the way. But Match Cut does 60 damage, discards special energy, which is splendid. And Dragon Blade does 100, which discards 2 cards, which is okay, but it's pretty good. With the attacks of with the ability of Altaria, say you have 2 or 3 Altaria in your bench, you're doing an extra 60 damage, which is pretty decent. It's enough to knock out pretty much anything other than EXs. But that's where the problem comes, because you should be running maybe a couple plus powers, because especially Darkrai Hydreigon, which is one of Garchomp's biggest enemies right now that I've played against, and it's not fun. The max potion gets in the way, so you either have to knock out Darkrai EX in one full hit, or you're gonna be pretty screwed, because they'll be able to move everything to their bench with Hydreigon, and then max potion before moving all the energy back. And it's a very efficient way of healing energy, but it's not very good for Garchomp. So you plus powers, you have to add a bunch of plus powers or anything, or run a lot of Altarias just to be able to hit those EXs in one shot, because you don't want to hit them in more than one shot, because it won't become pretty. So overall, I'm going to give it a 4 stars out of 5, just because of its inability to tackle its main enemy, Hydreigon, Darkrai Hydreigon right now, which is Garteria and Hydreigon Darkrai are one of the 2 really big decks right now. And Garchomp does get a lot of points for low retreat cost, low energy cost, and everything like that, and the artwork is amazing too. So I mean, all of that is really great. But if there's a card that releases in the future which helps Garchomp defeat maybe one of those bigger decks, it will be a lot easier. It will be a lot better to play. So that is LuxrayMogul coverage for this week. Hope you enjoyed it. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't. And come back next week for another episode. Thank you everyone for watching, and have a wonderful day. Cheers.